just celebrated May the 4th. Sure, we aren't a Star Wars channel, but we have a little story to tell featuring Marvel and a little franchise known as Star Wars. Yeah, I know. It's not small. I know. So today, Stan Lee presents the creation of Marvel's Star Wars comics. It all starts a long time ago in a galaxy not so far away. It was 1975, and Stan Lee was sitting in his office just doing everyday business until he was visited by a certain Charles Lippincott, the Lucasfilm publicity supervisor at the time. Now, you might be wondering, it's 1975, Star Wars hasn't been released yet, what could they be talking about? Well, exactly. Star Wars wasn't out for general consumption yet, and that was the topic of discussion. Lippincott approached Stan Lee with a proposal to publish a comic book series based on Star Wars before the film came out in 1977. Now, to us watching this video today, this decision seems easy as pie. Star Wars is huge, so why not say yes? Well, here's the thing. Since Star Wars hadn't been released yet, Stan Lee had nothing to help sway his decisions other than this person right in front of him, and not knowing how big Star Wars would become and how giant its influence would be on the film industry after its release. The choice had a bit of risk behind it. Stan Lee ended up declining the proposal, at least until the film was actually released. Based on the information he had, Star Wars sounded like just another science fiction film. Now, you have to understand, before Star Wars, a lot of people were skeptical about the film. It had lots of potential, but sci-fi wasn't exactly a surefire hit at the time. In fact, many recent science fiction films hadn't performed well in theaters. At this time, before its release, some new Star Wars was different, but it was truly a you-have-to-see-it-to-believe-it type of film. Enter Roy Thomas, who succeeded Stan as Marvel's editor-in-chief in the early 1970s. Though he stepped down from the role in August 1974, Thomas remained an influential member of the Marvel bullpen. Another meeting was set, this time between Lucasfilm and Roy, who had been given the chance to view some early footage of Star Wars, and hear from George Lucas himself. To me, that should have been the plan to begin with. Let George Lucas talk to Marvel directly, because Star Wars was his baby, and he's probably the best person to talk to anybody about Star Wars. Well, in the end, these two combined captivated Roy. Enough so that he was willing to go to Stan Lee and persuade him into accepting the proposal. The man was a believer now. Some also say Stan became even more interested in Star Wars after hearing that an actor he truly admired, a certain Alec Guinness, was in the film. Now that Marvel Comics' Star Wars was greenlit and the deal was set in stone, it was time to get working on the series. Roy Thomas teamed up with artist Howard Chaykin, and together the two spearheaded the great task of adapting Lucas's vision from film to vibrantly colored paper. Fast forward to April 1977. It's about a month before the release of the film, and Marvel has the first issue of Star Wars rolled right off the presses and onto comic book stands. Stakes were high and the skeptics were being skeptical, but despite that, the issue had strong sales, which only got stronger when the film finally debuted a month later. Issues number 1 through 6 were adapted from the film itself, and were eventually collected in the trade paperback for Marvel's illustrated version of Star Wars. Fun fact, Stan Lee even wrote the intro for it. But the series didn't stop there. It continued way beyond that, featuring original stories and the eventual adaptation of The Empire Strikes Back. Return of the Jedi would also be adapted, but was part of a limited series. In the end, the original Marvel Star Wars comic series published 107 issues, plus 3 annuals. According to Jim Shooter, the editor-in-chief at the time, Star Wars did so well that it basically saved Marvel financially in 1977 and 1978. Suffice to say, publishing Star Wars through Marvel was a risk worth taking, and even today we see new Star Wars comic book series under the Marvel banner. It's not the original run, but it proves that this partnership has flourished way beyond those original years, and despite the Star Wars license bouncing between different publishers. And with that, this story comes to a close. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to hear more stories like this, let us know in the comments below. Consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you next time. Excelsior.